Live now.
Hello, welcome to Node Foundation TSC meeting for the 9th of March 2017. And let's do a quick review of last meeting. So we talked about the Collaboration Summit, and that's going to be the Europe Collaboration Summit anyway. That's going to align with JSConf EU. We were just looking for people to actually spearhead that, but there's been more discussion in there. We looked at, we talked about nominating Josh, and we're going to have a vote on that today. We're going to finish the vote because the vote's actually been going on GitHub. So Josh Gavant, and then we looked at copyright issues. There was both copyright date and also the copyright text. Revised membership rules, which we will try and dig into today, and the NPM package stuff managed for Node Foundation. So that's been resolved, and Michael Dawson has taken that elsewhere. So that's how to publish Node Foundation packages. So Michael Dawson, where did that that went somewhere else?
I haven't actually seen any discussion. I think since the last time we got together, there wasn't a lot. I believe everybody was pretty much in agreement with the, we'll just have a foundation user. I'll go back and check and make sure that there's no dissension there, and then just basically say that's what we're going to do and move it forward.
Okay, easy.
So it's just the foundation user just on the account, not one user that everyone has to use, right?
Exactly, yes. Yep.
Okay, so diving into this meeting, we're going to talk first about Collaboration Summit, which is issue number 39 in the Summit repo. Now, I'm not sure this needed to come back onto the agenda. Oh, no, it did. So, Brian Hughes, you at the bottom there, and Anna settled on date and everything. Okay, Anna, do you want to take this and tell us where this up to?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much settled on doing a collaboration summit on May 4th and 5th. That's has been coming out of the discussion, I think. Like only 11 people reacted to my comment where I suggested that we take numbers on how many people could attend. But it's definitely going to be more. People like Rich Trott have already opened up issues for asking for travel funds and stuff. It would still be cool to have better numbers on how many people would attend. I'm not sure what the best way to get that is, except maybe send an email to all collaborators.
Yeah, I'd say now that you have a date, sending out a question would probably get you more of the answer that you want.
Right. I did comment on the thread with that it might be better to just send out emails or something.
Alternatively, opening a new issue to actually ask for something specific instead of asking people to read the whole thread. I think that's the problem there. But if you open a new issue with just that question, that might help.
Yeah, sure.
Up to you how you go forward with that, email or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just kind of worried about I know a lot of people have quite a backlog on notifications. So.
Yeah, and one thing to add to that, one reason that I encouraged bringing this up today is just the clock's kind of ticking on this one. Beginning of May is not that far away, and travel costs are going to start going up pretty soon. So I think it's important that we at least get an official date that we can tell people and be like, hey, this is the date. Start looking.
Yeah, right. That's something that we should do today. Just say it's gonna happen on May 4th and 5th in Berlin. It's a shame Michael isn't here. My projects.
What do you need from Michael?
The question I have,
Now he was just like talking to somebody in Berlin who would have a space for us that we could like get for free. So the TSC doesn't actually need to ask the board for anything.
Okay, so you guys
Is
don't
that
want.
something?
Okay, yeah, right. Especially if you can get the number down or like a reasonable estimate, then they'll be able to cover the venue. But you guys don't want like food and beverage.
Yeah, we probably will want at least coffee and tea, stuff like that. Yeah, and so I think if we can send an email out today with like, hey, these are the dates. We're still finalizing some things. Let us know what you think. But like these are the dates. Here's your travel information. Do you think you'll be there? Yes, no.
Yeah, I think the dates are the most important thing right now, and the location of the city. Other than that, like you'll be able to get commitments from there, and the logistics of getting a venue and or asking an allocation are absolutely not blockers to this. So, but we can still work on that if y'all need it.
Tracy, if you're talking to Michael, could you maybe get Michael to introduce Mana to Jan to talk about the venue? I think it was Jan that was the person that was handling that.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, like would everybody here feel comfortable like setting the date for May 4th and 5th in Berlin? Because I don't really see any reason not to do that.
I think I feel comfortable saying 4th and 5th is the date based on the thread because it looked like the V8 team was going to be in for available on the 4th and 5th, but not afterwards, and we wanted to hook them in. So like I think we're at a point where we can say yes, this is definitively the date, but I don't know what does everyone else think.
Makes perfect sense to me as long as that venue is available.
Agreed.
And it'd be good to lock it in now since people are already making plans for being at and traveling to JSConf. Make it so.
Right, so as an action item follow-up, do we want to, Anna, do you want to send out an email to the collaborators saying like, this is the dates, let us know if you're interested?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I've talked to Michael or Jan directly. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, moving on. We have this nomination for Josh Gavant from Microsoft to join the TSC. Josh has been with us consistently for months, helping out. And so far we've had, hang on a minute, I'm just going to open that issue tab to just see positives we've had because I was keeping track of this. We do have enough votes. Sorry, just let me. I had my tally somewhere, but I lost it. We have 11 TSC members at the moment, and we had myself, Bert, Brian, Colin, James, Jeremiah. 6 out of 11 voting positively already, and then since then we have added Brian White and Bert again. So that's 7. Do we have anybody in this meeting that is not on that list? or voted somewhere? We didn't. Okay, that's fine. So that's 7 out of 11 votes. So I don't think we have anyone else to really vote live. So assuming that's the case, then we have to welcome Josh on as a TSC member now. So that's all done and dusted. So Josh, welcome to the TSC.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Welcome, Josh.
Glad to be an official part.
Thanks for your contributions so far, and we look forward to more.
Absolutely.
So after like 2 years, we finally expanded the TSC. Let's do better.
Okay, and we have 2 more nominations to roll through. We have Michael Dawson and Anna Henningsen to vote on in the next few weeks. So those will be coming up too. And yeah, great. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is this copyright date, which hasn't actually moved since last week. This is copyright date.
Exactly. Yeah. So the copyright, it's ready to go. It's need folks to review it, and I'll be landing it later on. Their copyright revert. That's the restoring the original copyright.
Okay, that's the okay. That's actually the next issue, which is the copyright, restoring the copyright, rather than the copyright. The date, and to be honest, I'm not sure how to proceed here on the date one. The question, which is, can we remove or change the date on the copyrights, or should we? What should we do? And it's just typical back and forth about legals that we don't really have definitive answers on. Okay, I'm going to suggest that we. So James posted a good summary last week about what the questions are about copyright dates, and I'm going to suggest that we punt them up to the board since we're just going back and forth and pretending we know what we're talking about here. So I'm going to take that text and send it to the board and see if either the board wants to answer it or send it to the board's legal committee. So that's how, since we have nothing else to do with it. Okay, so the next item is the one that James just mentioned, which is the copyright text, which is about restoring the original copyright with Joyent that was removed at the beginning of IOJS. That's still in that state. So the PR is ready to go, and James will get that probably landed this week, I guess. And there was a second PR, which still is under discussion, I believe, by the legal committee.
That'll land either tonight or tomorrow. Then, of course, there's a larger discussion about the updating it. We're still waiting on the legal committee review on.
That is issue number, those listening in, issue number 174 in the TSC repo, if anyone's interested in that background. Next item is the revised membership rules. Now, this is something we've been going back and forth on, trying to get some, just trying to clarify a few things, just fix up a few little things, but also adding some attendance rules for TSC membership. Now, we do have votes for this from in the issue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of now 12, because the TSC is now 12. And it needs to be 2/3, so we actually need to get to 9 votes, 8 votes. 8? Yeah, we need to get to 8 votes. So we have a 2/3 rule for changing membership rules. So we got an additional vote in there. Hang on a second. So we got another +1 from Fedor, so that's 6. Josh, you haven't voted yet, but you're brand new, so. Well, no, actually, you did vote, Josh. You gave it an LGTM. Do you stand by that as a vote?
I think so. Bert's comment today was interesting, kind of thinking
Right.
about it. But yeah,
Um,
I'm still +1.
so yes, that's the hang up now. So instead of having a vote, the problem we have is that is now Bert has raised some concerns, which is that hang on, is Bert on the call? Sorry, back and forth with Windows here.
No, he's not here.
He's not. Okay, so Bert's concern, I'm going to read this, is what if instead of having an attendance rule, we require TSC members to vote? If you don't vote on, say, 80% of the motions, you're out. I don't think, I think this is much more in line with the TSC's role, which is to determine what the consensus is and cut the knot if there seems to be none. It's also much easier to track. This new rule incentivizes joining the phone meeting, implying that this is the most important thing a TSC member should do, but it isn't per se. It doesn't per se stimulate TSC members to do the duties they actually have. I think it also conflicts with the general goal of communicating asynchronously as much as possible. So in retrospect, I'm not in favor of the rule. So he's taking his vote back. So James, how would you like to proceed here? Because I know that discussion's only 3 hours old. Shall we just take it back to GitHub for now and discuss there?
So we can take it back to GitHub. I'd like to close on this. I mean, we're obviously having a situation right now where just getting enough votes to provide the charter for any reason is pain. So whether it's attendance or votes, we still aren't getting enough participation. So I don't see how changing it to votes is actually going to help if he doesn't think the attendance is going. So I have no problem bringing it back to GitHub for discussion, but I really don't want to drag this out much longer. So we need to set a purpose for both.
That's fine. So, like, you can. How about we take it back to GitHub for now? Since this is only 3 hours old, we can't really just force a vote right now. So, how about you, in that thread, set the expectation this is coming back for a vote next week, unless things change. But have a discussion there with Bert and anyone else that wants to engage. I tend to agree that I'm not sure that it makes much difference whether it's voting or attending a meeting. They're both. You know, you could sit in a meeting and just be there, and you can also throw votes, and it's just as easy. In fact, it's probably easier throwing votes on GitHub, and just getting over your your 6-month hump just by throwing a vote. So either way, I don't think it matters. But let's take that to GitHub.
So I want to bring up.
That was-
I think part of the thing here was to make sure that the people who are essentially actually had voting rights then were people who are still like up to date with everything, so that when there is a vote, like not everything needs to be explained necessarily there again. If you understand what I'm saying, I'm not sure that tracking meetings is necessarily the best way to like track that sort of thing, of course, but I'm not sure there is a good way either. So.
Yeah, that was my thinking too. Like it's a valid what Bert says is valid, but it's kind of like what are our options to kind of encourage it, participation, and that I think we ended up with phone as the least as the best option amongst.
Yeah, I think that also some of the other work groups were kind of looking to it as a pattern to use, in similar cases where, there are people who hadn't shown up in quite a long time.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure
I brought that up.
in those cases the votes is going to help. Not that is the reason why it would be the right or wrong answer, but
It's really a participation rule, right?
Yeah.
And it may be that we need to redefine attendance so that it's not just showing up to meetings, but maybe it's participating in the GitHub thread. So if somebody has not participated in the GitHub conversation and hasn't shown up to the meeting, in in that 6 week time, then they're dropped, right? Maybe we just need to take a stab at defining what participation means.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of agree with everything that's been said. One thing I want to throw out, one of the maybe a reason that we're getting a little pushback is that meeting attendance is tricky for some people based on time zones. We have an issue open to look at like rotating time meetings of times and whatnot. And so maybe that's like the sort of where this issue is and why we're getting pushback from certain people, which mostly are in Europe, which this is kind of a bad time for folks in Europe right now. So maybe that's something that sort of needs to be taken on in conjunction with this. Maybe taking on that work could be what would help alleviate some of the concerns around meeting attendance.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of, or you're active in the issues. If somebody's, very active in the issues but can't make the meetings, it still seems like they're active and contributing, right?
At the same time, I think the idea of tying it to votes, like we can have somebody that's active on GitHub or listen on TSC, but they never vote, they never participate in the conversation, but they're still like on GitHub. That cannot count towards TSC participation, right? They have to be participating in a TSC discussion. When a TSC calls for a vote, they need to be participating in the vote, even if it's going to abstain. So I think what I need to do at this point, taking both comments into consideration, is just define it as not an attendance rule, but a participation rule, and then define what TSC participation means.
That sounds good to me.
Okay. So I'll take a couple of days to do that, and get that updated.
Something else we can consider if this turns out to be a major roadblock to getting this landed is we could split this out into 2 PRs or do this in 2 stages. One is updating basically everything but the attendance rule. Get that landed first. Because one of the big things in that was changing from requiring a 2/3 vote to just a simple majority. And maybe if we get that in first, and then we can like debate the attendance rule separately, maybe that will make it easier to kind of get some of this stuff through and get through some of the stuff that we really need to get landed.
That's a possibility as well.
Okay. Look, James, that's in your hands. I know, it's been a while, and you'd really like to get it landed. But if you need, just set a expectation for when you're calling for an official vote, and we will have a meeting vote. No, we can't just have meeting votes. We are doing asynchronous voting as well. But just call for a time for voting. I mentioned in an email that we were going to try and do it today. I didn't say that we would, but we would try. But on GitHub there, it needs to be called specifically that there will be a vote, and then we can, do the proper vote tallying, even if there's disagreement. But for now, since there is disagreement, we do need to try the consensus seeking.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Moving on. Last item on the agenda here is there's an issue open in the new community committee repo, issue number 7, which is proposing a single code of conduct for the org. Now, William, would you like to give us some background on this? And you tag this, so can you tell us what you'd like us to discuss here, please?
I actually tagged it because I believe James said that he wanted to bring it up.
Yep. So there is a conversation that's come up within the community committee about the code of conduct and making it allowing it to more easily be reused. And the idea there would basically be to move the code of conduct into its own repo within Node.js, TSC, and then link to it from all the different places that we need it from. Right now, it's just in the root of the core directory. It's really that simple. It's not changing the TOC at this point. It's just moving it. Now, changes could come down the road depending on what direction the community committee and the TSC wants to take things. That would be a joint effort. But we separate it out would make it a little bit easier to have this conversation.
And to add a little bit more context to that, right now the code of conduct is, I believe it's in the sort of like working group template. And so the code of conduct is, in some cases, is like linked back to the main one, but in other cases it's been copied and pasted. And so they've kind of gotten out of sync in a couple of places. And this is just kind of an effort to make sure that we're all in sync and that, everyone is using the same one, just, which hopefully should make, understanding of the code of conduct, enforcement and all that a little more easier, a little more transparent and, expectable and whatnot.
Is there any concern? Like, it seems to me like it's just the right thing to do.
So how do changes to this get approved, since we're now talking about a code of conduct that spans multiple ownership groups?
It would probably fall under. I think it would still fall under the TSC's purview.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I
don't think
guess,
we're talking about ownership transferring out of the TSC. I think it's just literally having better access to it across all of the repos.
Right.
So is it what will the community committee use the same code of conduct for its activities, like it's doing some moderation stuff now?
Yeah, so that was kind of, this is why the whole conversation came up, is like we ended up going on like a bunch of different rabbit holes, but the big one there was that we do not in any circumstance want to be operating like, it doesn't make any sense for the community committee to have a different code of conduct than the TSC because we're all one project. So we didn't want that split to happen. So we just wanted to make sure that the code of conduct continues to be talked about in one place and discussed and reviewed in one place. And that was when I think William or James had discovered, maybe Brian, how many different places it had existed, and that was why. So like any conversation that we have in the future about the code of conduct still needs to be in the same place. It would just be nice for it to be in its own repo where we can all chat about it.
So what if the community committee wants to make changes and the TSC doesn't?
It just goes under the same. It's under the current process. So yeah, the RIP opens it, and if the ownership of the code of conduct lies with the TSC.
I mean, I think, I think what Rod is trying to bring up is that those rules are there. That doesn't mean that the humans don't complicate it. I mean, I think under that circumstance, it's that we still have to be, it's diplomacy at that point. And the changes that I see coming down the road in terms of the code of conduct is only from like an enforcement perspective, because code of conducts don't have teeth without enforcement. So that's even like, enforcement is a terrible like policey word, but it's guidelines on like, the cool things that the moderation group has been doing on executing code of conduct and people behavior. It's like codifying that, or like finally bringing in the IRC moderation, sort of code of conduct that exists outside of, but needs to be reworded a bit. It's like those sorts of things. So I don't think that it's not going to be anything that's like brand spanking new that hasn't been tested out by the TSC and anything that they've been doing anyway. So I know that it is the touchiest and most painful of subjects for any open source, or not any. It's not the touchiest. It is a painful thing for everyone to work on. So I get the concern there. But in terms of how we've written it so far, the TSC owns it, still owns it, and I don't see that changing in any time soon that we've talked about.
I guess. I mean, we're only talking about GitHub here anyway, but I guess just to extrapolate on that, my concern is that the community committee is a different management group that holds separate discussions and has separate concerns, and it may want to take things in a particular direction, and so but to get the changes that it wants to make, then it's got to go and then convince the TSC to make those changes, potentially just for things that only impact the things that the committee is doing. So
Hmm.
I
I would
guess,
say if it's. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's entirely possible that will come up. That's kind of a bridge I would prefer to cross when we get there.
Yeah.
Like until we have a concrete case of, okay, this is something the community needs that is sort of at odds with what the TSC needs. Like until we have something concrete to point out, I prefer to just go with the assumption that it's possible for us to share a code of conduct. And then, like, if it turns out we need to or something, then we could discuss it then. But I prefer to kick that can down the road and just kind of leave things in place as they are now. And,
I think,
and when we do come into conflict, it's going to be the usual thing we do with anything else, consensus seeking model.
I guess the other thing too is, are we actually saying that everybody has to use that same one? Or are we making it easy for everybody to use the same one unless they absolutely want something different?
We're making it easier for them to reuse it. Our current rules allow working groups to choose their own. It is provided as part of the template. It is made the default that if the working group does not choose one, then that is the one that applies. But our current governance allows working groups the autonomy to create that, and the same thing would exist with the community committee. If they reach a situation where the default one does not work for them, then they can choose to go their own way.
Right, and I think
that doesn't mean that they can change that default one without the CSC's approval. So the current processes don't change. It's just where that thing is managed. That's all it's supposed to be.
Same goes for things managed under the TSC as well. For example, what if the CTC wants to change its code of conduct in its repo, but the TSC doesn't want it changed in its repo or elsewhere that it manages? Potentially, we could have a forking of the code of conduct at that point. I mean, that's purely hypothetical. I don't actually see that happening. But
even in that case,
in that case, you could just unwind it and say, instead of pointing to this common repo, you point to a new version of it that's local.
right, and even if you did that, it might still make sense to put them together in the same repo. There could be, here's the default, and then here's the special one for other groups, just so that if you want to go and look and compare them, it's easy to find them all. And
okay, look, I don't think this is too controversial. Then, just as long as the committee is aware that it's effectively ceding that over to the TSC, and then will need to take place with the TSC for things that may not even impact the TSC.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, if there's anything that's exclusively the scope of the community committee, then that will have to be addressed as, you can't be putting this you can't be shoving this into the code of conduct repo that is owned by the TSC, because that doesn't make sense to be applying rules to someone that didn't get any say in it, because you guys get the ultimate say. Anyway, yeah. I have questions about this, but I'll ping y'all online about it.
So the proposal that I would have in terms of moving forward would just be setting up that repo so that only the TSC members have rights. Open a PR that moves the code of conduct into that. Anybody can open a PR to suggest a change, but it requires TSC approval to land.
Yep.
And then there's going to need to be PRs across every repo and approval from each of the groups responsible for that.
Yep.
Sorry, Brian, say that again. I didn't quite catch that.
There's going to need to be separate PRs for each of the repos where we have a code of conduct, and then approval from each of those groups that they're okay with that, which is, you're going to get to the CTC, and perhaps things might get hairy, but we'll see.
I think a lot of the work groups just won't care, right? It's like, okay, there's a common one, we'll just point to it.
But there will be people that care. So
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. There'll be some
prepared for that.
Hopefully not too many.
If the working group doesn't want to change, if they want to have their own copy, then fine. So be it. I mean, we allow them to do that now. It's no thing.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else to discuss on this? Because it sounds like this can be taken to GitHub for next steps. Nope. Okay. Let's move on then to public Q&A. This is the time when anyone listening into the live stream can ask questions of the TSC or have input to the meeting if you'd like to make a comment as well. So drop that into the YouTube comments ideally, but you could also potentially comment on the GitHub issue for this meeting, which is issue number 222 in the TSC repo in the Node.js org. So we'll give this a minute for the live stream to catch up to us.
I mean, this question's pretty loaded, but someone asked, what is the best way to start learning Node.js and get a job? Does anyone want to?
Open source. That's the best way. Go to nodeschool.io and work through some curriculum there. And build yourself an open source profile showing that you know how to do Node. That's the best way, I think.
I'd say the way I learned Node fastest was going through the issue tracker and just seeing what all the open issues were. I spent several weeks doing that, so it was very informative.
And also to piggyback off of what Rod said, if there's a local Node School chapter, you know, next to where you live, definitely go there, because then you can, you know, actually meet and hang out with other Node folks and start networking, things like that, which is also helpful.
Yep.
Absolutely, and you'll often find people recruiting in those venues too, because lots of companies need Node people.
The education repo on GitHub also has a number of resources that they suggest, including Node School, in order to kind of hop through the different parts of learning Node. But we'll have a more comprehensive write out of that as well as the certification comes out, because we have to have that path documented for people.
That's cool. Is that content going to make it onto the website at some point?
Oh yeah, it's going to be everywhere, because we just want people. It's nice to be able to kind of codify that path for folks, even if it's only one way. It's not the way. But I think it's exciting to get to hear a bunch of really awesome people from our project kind of give that input and say, like, these are great resources. These are paths that we followed. This is a great way to at least get to this point. It'll be on GitHub as well as the website.
Someone else asks, should I use math-intensive stuff with Node?
Depends on your use case. If you are mixing that with, like if you're trying to do a high throughput web server, then you probably shouldn't be wasting too much time on maths. That's the kind of question. If you've got technical questions about Node, then we've got a great repo there where you can open those questions, which is node.js/help. And then there's a full crew there that is much more capable of answering technical questions like that.
Yes, I will link that in the chat. Thanks for the reminder.
I think Stack Overflow, if you tag Node in Stack Overflow, then I think that's pretty well manned as well.
Yeah, just a really quick note on that. Node is single-threaded, so generally for computation stuff, there might be better choices based on your use case. It's hard to know without knowing more details, though. All right, those are the two questions that were in YouTube. Don't see any anywhere else. We can leave it open for a minute if you'd like.
I think we've had the call out for a while, so we probably should just close it up. I'll just double check that there's nothing new in that issue for the meeting. Nope. Okay, so next meeting in 2 weeks. Don't forget there is a public calendar for meetings and events that happen across the GitHub org that, across the technical group that William manages, and details for that are available in various places, including the minutes for each of the meetings. So if you need help getting that calendar attached, then let one of us know and we'll see if we can help. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you all online.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.